The race is over, the goal is over, and this is the weird part. Months of structure are suddenly gone. The body is sore, but the bigger feeling is mental. It gets quiet. You spend so much time preparing to arrive somewhere, and then you arrive quiet. Welcome back to Still Becoming. I hope you all are having a great end of the week, a weekend. I'm obviously back from my marathon in Ventura. As this airs, it'll be Wednesday, so I'll be about 10 days removed from the race. And woo, last week was quite the the just trial of getting through pain. As what this show is, it's about growth beyond being perfect. I would say that's the idea of that's misleading a lot, but the show's about growth in the ways that you stumble and fall and you get back up, and goals that are well beyond 35 and 40, where you just want to keep pushing. You don't really care what anyone else says. So, we've got some stuff to talk about today, pushing forward. Essentially the title of the episode today is, after the finish line. The part no one talks about when the training's over and it's quiet. I would say there's been a lot of that for me this week. And just to reiterate on a little bit of the race, I will say 240 was the result. I really didn't want to put a label on a time, so I wasn't so disappointed in the end. But, I would say I'm happy I got out there and I performed. I did what I could, and, I came away with a final 10K that I ran out of gas. And, I had to look back on my training this last week since I had plenty of time to sit back and do nothing. I just looked at it, and I think, the coach I'm working with and, just looking at my experience, we came to the conclusion that, I just didn't have enough durability. A lot of the workouts that I think I needed, I thought we would be okay. And, so did my coach. And it turns out, we got into it. And, those durability workouts, they should have they were the thing I missed. And, I'm not sad about that. To me, I look at it as like, that's another piece I can keep tagging onto, keep still becoming. And so, with that being said, let's get into the whole, mindset today where, the race is done. What next? There's an emotional hangover, and I would say I've been dealing with it here and there. A lot better than I have in years past, where I felt so devastated by, well, what's next? I just feel like this big hangover. I didn't quite think about what's next. I didn't accomplish my goal. I felt just sad because the adventure's over, and now what? I have nothing to prepare for, and that's okay. To me, I think the biggest part is stop wrestling with that idea. The race is over, the part no one talks about, where you're just you expect a celebration. Instead, it's unsettling emptiness. It's not failure. It's your system coming down. The structure that held everything together is gone. This happens to athletes, creators, anyone chasing something meaningful. The goal gave you direction, and now you have to exit that. You have to get out of the lane that you were in and say, we're done with this one. I want to get back in that lane, but perhaps not at this moment. My exit is here, and I need to rest. I need to let the body recover. I have literally been doing nothing, and I mean like nothing. The first couple of days after the race, I was so sore and achy that I wouldn't have even tried to do anything. I would think it would be kind of unwise to simply keep pushing. I know your body's like, we got to get back. It's Monday. I normally weight train. I'm hurting, but I got to push through, and that's unfortunately how injuries happen. If you want to be better and solidify the foundation from something you did that was very epic, you got to let the body rest. And it is the most boring and unsatisfying thing mentally, because a lot of times we think of it as it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. It's boring. Why would I do that? And unfortunately, I know when I've been working out or involved in something so heavy that sometimes I want to take that break, and yet I'm in the middle of it, and you're just thinking about a day off or just not doing anything. And here you go. You finally got it. But most of the time we're in it too much to enjoy it because we want to get out, and we think it's weakness being in this moment of relaxation. And you're scared you're going to lose fitness. You're scared you're going to lose your edge on just, what you're hunting for. Maybe that, information that you need to gather for this upcoming, meeting that's 10 weeks away, or that's, a few weeks away, or you just finished giving the most epic meeting of your life. And now you're sort of coming down off that. I got to prepare. Maybe I could change these things. And unfortunately, like, just relax. There's so many things that I want to change. I want to get to, getting after those tougher workouts. But if we just already are in fatigue and you dig more into it, that's going to suddenly just cause more of a hole instead of just let me recuperate. And sometimes that can take longer than we want it to. But I think, it's got to be done. That immediate urge to say what's next, another race, another plan, something to avoid, the stillness. We confuse, moments with progress, that quietness. We think, I can't have it anymore. I don't need it. It's been too long. And, recovery is where, physical adaptation happens. Reflection is where mental growth happens. On a personal note, feeling that push to rush back, as I've stated just a minute ago there, I really want to get back. But that's not what actually makes at least me better. In this case, I really just want us to have this rest. I've been kind of looking at some articles, and it's been this, like, you can actually make a stronger attempt and a harder push at your next, marathon, ultimately, for me, by just letting all of this solidify. I will say it is Saturday right now, a few days, the weekend before the episode launches, and I went for a run this morning. It was 20 minutes. I was happy it was 20 minutes. I was getting pretty antsy by Friday. But I went for it, and I got to say, my body still is not completely ready. I will end up recovering and resting tomorrow, using my little jet boots I have to kind of ease that compression on the legs and just let things be naturally, my body working through that. And so, I've been doing that a lot this week, sleeping, resting, kind of doing all the boring stuff that, unfortunately, we just assume the people at the top don't do it, or they do it and it's like, yeah, so what? But nobody really ever talks about, like, hey, I've taken this much time off, and yeah, I'm panicking because I haven't started again, but I'm also in a place where I have to calm those emotions and say, hey, it's okay. We're not losing any fitness. If anything, our body is going to gain some fitness. It may not feel like that at the very beginning when you step out the door and you head to the gym, or you head to the office after, your presentation, and you just feel like, I got to push into it. And I feel like I've lost that edge after a week, but no, you're going to find you get it back a lot sooner than you think. Your race is not, you are not the result. It's easy to attach identity to that performance. Good outcome versus validation, bad outcome versus doubt. But race day reveals, it doesn't define. It just reveals, like, here's what you did today, but it doesn't define the person that you were getting to that point. The real thing is being built, durability, patience, consistency. Kind of what I talk about with the message in the show, that idea of, like, you're still becoming. One little thing does not define who you are. One little thing does not dictate. Like I said, I'm actually happy that my race ended in a disaster. Most people would call it that. I walked about a quarter mile, like mile 22. And I remember there was an individual who was about my age, in his 40s, was telling me, like, hey, don't worry, man, this doesn't define you. I think he was waiting for his girlfriend or something, but this doesn't define you. You're better than this. Things happen. It happens to all of us. And I kept telling him, I was like, I know, I wasn't saying that out of sarcastic. I just knew, and everybody was so kind on the race. It was so helpful along the way. Like, hey, marathoner, do you need gels? And I'd have to say, no. I was just letting my body absorb that and realize that there's nothing more I can do other than damage control. And that was walk when I needed to, walk through the aid stations. This definitely did not define who I was as a person, where in years past it would have. No, this was definitely, okay, this is part of the step of still becoming. I'm going to stumble along the way. I'm going to fail and, quote, what would be the expectation of, I got to hit the time. But that's one of the reasons I never set up a goal time in this race. I just wanted to know what I could become at this point. And 240 is what I became. Again, not disappointed. I'm excited about the future of what I can do, or at least areas that I can improve on. And even if I run a slower time, it's just tinkering with those little things. I hope I don't run a slower time, but hey, I really just don't want it to be about time. I want it to be about effort. Effort will bring the time. Effort will bring your results. Maybe not right away, maybe not when you want it, but effort will bring your time. You don't have to become someone on that day. You reveal what you practiced, and that's what you become. You know, in between where growth lives, this phase is uncomfortable because there's no scoreboard, there's no splits, no metrics, no applause, just patience. But this is where motivation resets. Instead of burning out, you're not losing progress, you're absorbing it. I've been absorbing, and I'll tell you, my body has been absorbing this entire week. And beginning of it, I was very glad that I was like, "Phew, I'm taking time off. I'm going to sleep when I need to." And I'm glad I took a day off after I got back from, visiting my folks and running the race. And, by the end of the week, I was getting pretty itchy and agitated and I wanted to get back to it, but I knew I have to just pause, pump the brakes, and so to wrap up, listener, and the challenge, for this week, I would say don't rush to replace the thing you finished. Don't rush to sign up for that. If it's a marathon, 5K, don't rush to sign up for that. If it's a volunteer opportunity that you just faced, you just finished and you're like, I feel so rushed, I got to get another one. Give yourself one day where you don't optimize anything. You just stay. No measuring, no chasing productivity. I know that's hard. And for those of you that are very productive, I am talking to you. For those of you that are really learning this experience of I got to be productive, more than I have been, maybe go and get halfway into something, but even then, enjoy what you just have accomplished. Enjoy what you just have done. Go for a walk, sit, let things just settle. I've gone on a couple walks with my wife and dogs, and, that's sometimes so enjoyable to let life just pass me by and watch my dogs enjoy the walk. Let it feel uncomfortable, because growth isn't only built by effort, it's built by allowing effort to take hold. And as I anchor that down for you, the challenge isn't to do more. The challenge is to trust what you've already done and that it is enough for today. And so in closing, if you feel off after finishing something big, that is totally normal. Don't interpret stillness as regression. You're not starting over, you're continuing without the noise. And to finish, I want you to understand that you are still becoming and you are the only one stopping you. I'll see y'all next time.